All right, I'm on my lunch break, but this morning on my way to work, I watched a video called Splatoon, fun on Nintendo's terms or something like that. And it was a really fun, interesting video about just like a lot of general complaints coming from a more casual fan of the series, talking about how, the game in general, a lot of things are not intuitive, especially to how like a lot of other games operate, and how stuff like series and rotations and everything, well, a unique concept, not a fan favorite. Obviously, it's not a lot of people can really get into it, or that rather that like it turns a lot of people away from it, from like otherwise a pretty enjoyable experience in terms of a video game. And it made me think about like how, from a casual perspective, you just put down the game or you don't play the game nearly as much. But for the people who really enjoy the game, the real Splatoon heads, right? The only way to really remedy this is either to be like, just accept fate and just be like, oh, this is just how the game is, or to really like engage with the community, the competitive community specifically, if you were like a fan of the ranked modes and whatnot. And it feels like, honestly, that's the only way to really play the game, at least in a rational, like reasonable way. And it's made me think about how a lot of the competitive community in Splatoon is very unique and different from a lot of other competitive titles, and specifically how a lot of the competitive community call themselves competitive, but they're really just casual, or they play the game as if it were ranked in any other game. So, for example, I would say, because people don't like the in-game matchmaking systems within Splatoon, you look at a game like, Overwatch, Valorant, League of Legends, like Apex Legends. Just literally pick anything. Pick any FPS, pick any MOBA, pick anything else, right? They'll have a more, or I guess less League of Legends because it doesn't have the map issue, but like, you pick any other game and its ranked system and its matchmaking system and everything is, well, not perfect, is definitely just a reasonable thing. You get to play the things that you want to play, and you don't have to run into issues of like, oh, I can't play this thing, or, it's the specific map mode that I don't like, or whatever the case is, or at least you have a little bit more say in being able to participate in team play. And, with Splatoon, you don't have any of that. You can't even comm with anybody, right? You really can't even interact with anybody post-match or anything like that. So when, that is an experience you are looking forward to, and an experience you can't have, like, you move towards like the community to kind of help with it. Obviously, you're going to look at tournaments and you're going to look at stuff like that and be like, oh, that's going to be an opportunity for me to, play the game. I want to play the game, and I just want to do that. And it's like, I'm going to make some friends, we'll play the game together, and that'll be that. But a big thing I would say is, because of that, and especially because the community has come together to essentially facilitate this through just lower level tournaments, or just like entry level stuff, or ways for the people, from the casual audience to kind of get into it, is that it's created almost this intramural system in the way traditional sports have intramural leagues, or, just random pickup groups. And that's normal, I would say, because if I want to play the game of Splatoon in a way that I want to play it, like let's say I want to play Splatoon's not on rotation in any of the modes that I have available to me, like, I'm going to want to like hop on a Discord or something, find some people to pug with, and just enjoy the game I would like to enjoy. Obviously, is that how I would prefer to do? No, I'd love to have a matchmaking system put me together with other people, but I don't really have that option. Like, I need to find a scrim, I need to find eights, I need to find an open lobby. I'll go on Twitch even and see if anybody's got an open lobby just to play with them, right? And that's kind of the situation you find yourself in if you enjoy Splatoon as like a game, and you want to play the game, but you can't, because it's not fundamentally built for, I mean, it is, but like, it's dog shit, as most people say. Like, nobody really likes the rotation system. There are people who do, but that's them. The vast majority of people, to the point of getting into the community, they prefer to play the game in private battles, because with people that they know, in formats and structures that they feel familiar with, and that's why they kind of make that jump. But in other games, that's not really the case at all. like in so many other games, the ranked system is competent enough, or at least good enough, to satisfy most of the general public, that they don't need to go into a competitive community. And at best, they really go into third party, like they go to third party matchmaking, but that's still matchmaking. You're not joining tournaments just to get your itch out of it. That's a matchmaking system, and we do have that. I mean, Splarate used to exist, and then Sendo Q does exist, but not to the same extent. But you know, you need to do those things to play those games. Or, you know, like if you want to fill your Overwatch itch, you just queue, and there are people who just queue, and that's fine. So I think it's like somewhat unique. It's almost old school, I would say. It's almost old school, like FPS, back when, you know, matchmaking systems weren't as sophisticated and there were just servers. You know, it's like hopping on a Quake server, deathmatch server, you know, or a TF2 one, or any of the Valve games, really, you know, the old school ones, at least. You know, that's how you do stuff. Obviously, a lot of the newer ones, they have matchmaking now, but back in the day, you used to just find the server list. This deathmatch looks fun, and you didn't really care who's in it. But I think there is some value to like a competitive structure, and in a way, that's how people find their way into, you know, just playing the game that they would like to play it, and talking to new people and making connections. But the issue, again, like I said, in those traditional means of, you know, like the other games, how they do their matchmaking, the competitive community is so far removed from the casual community, or casual, but the ranked community, let's call it that. The ranked community is different from the competitive community, because the competitive community takes a lot more effort. You're streaming your matches. You have to get a lot of people on the same day together. You got to have pre-made teams. You got to prep a lot of stuff. Sometimes there's prizing, you know, like there's just a lot of factors into it. And, you know, there's kind of like this level of expectation that, like, you know, if you're going to the competitive aspect, you take the game somewhat seriously. Does that mean you're like super good? No. But it does mean that you're trying to take the game a little more seriously than just queuing up in ranked with your pre-made stack, or just by yourself, or with some friends, right? You know, you want to take the game a little bit more seriously, and you want to like engage with the game at a higher level. Like, you actually want to play the game for the team play aspect of what you like. You know, you're not just playing it just to play it. Like, you're not just scratching the itch and it doesn't matter who's there. You're just trying to play the game. It's not like that, right? And I feel like, because in Splatoon, you know, that competitive community is the solution, instead of like third-party servers, or server lists, I should say, or third-party matchmaking like Sendo Q. I mean, you know, it's kind of become a situation where the competitive community is the way that you do that, instead of having a third-party matchmaking service, or something like that, or going into forums and asking for games or whatnot. I think early on in Splatoon that was definitely the case, because, you know, you would find stuff like that. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. Like I said, this exists in traditional sports. If you want to go play bowling, I mean, yeah, you could just pay to go bowl, but like, why not hop in an intramural league, right? You know, like, yeah, you know, I could go to bowling alley, ask somebody like if they want to play. You know, it's like I could pick up, you know, go into a pickup group, you know, pick up basketball, you know, go to a basketball court and play and throw the ball around. But if you want a little bit more structure into it, which matchmaking systems often do, you have to kind of go into the competitive community. And that's why stuff like Ludi, I would say, is almost like an intramural league. And I don't think it'll ever be more than that. It serves like its community service purpose, and, you know, it's just an opportunity for people to kind of participate in a league format. And I feel like in Splatoon's case specifically, the competitive aspect is so also intertwined with the general experience. If you actually like the game a little bit more, especially the actual main competitive mode, a little bit more than the average person, or you just want to play it because you fell in love with that, you're like automatically kind of thrusted into the competitive community, because that's where most of the other people are. You know, that's where people are playing the game in a way that just makes sense and is normal for how people normally play the game, like how people play games. Like if I were to queue up for Overwatch, I'm not dealing with, playing a fuck ass map mode that doesn't make sense for 2 hours. You know what I mean? I don't have to deal. I can actually coordinate with my teammates on the smallest of things, even if they're a one trick. Like at least like we're not being thrusted into a situation with three chargers, and it took what 3 games to get that right. On Splatoon side, on Nintendo side. So like if you want to play the game in a way that makes sense, you kind of have to participate in the competitive community. And because of that, I feel like it's created like this divide, because there is still like a genuine part of the community that join competitive for the same reasons that they would join competitive in like Overwatch or Valorant or anything, or like I think of so many other FPS. I'm sorry, I can't think of any, like Call of Duty, I guess. Like I'm trying to find better examples, but even then, that that has like the same ideas. They want to be on teams, they want to develop the game, they want to develop themselves, and they don't view challenge as like an obstacle or an annoyance. They kind of want to actually take this shit seriously, and that's why they're at the top. A lot of them are. I'm sure there are people with that mentality, but they're not at the top, and that's okay. But like there are people that kind of go into that, like they're not just in the competitive community, they're not signing up for tournaments just to play the game, which I mean I'm sure they do sometimes, because again the single player the matchmaking system sucks dick, and like it could be way better. It just absolutely sucks. But like they have a desire to improve, is my point. They have a desire to improve. They want to keep pushing. They want to be very competitive. But I feel like there's a larger portion of the Splatoon community, even higher up, from what I've seen. Again, I'm not a player. I'm not in Plus servers. I don't even have that much insider information. This is coming mostly just from people who have been in there, or just talking about it, or just seeing how you act. If you are one of these people, like it's how you approach the tournaments, and everything, or how you complain about stuff on Twitter. It's very obvious that like you're not in the competitive community for the same reasons. You're in the competitive community because you just want to play the game, and that's okay. I'm not going to judge that person for just playing the game, but I think that creates, for a lot of people, and it creates a lot of discourse where people are just like, like why is it that only a handful of people ever win? Why is it that people complain so much, blah blah blah? And you see it from the top players, be like, you guys just have no drive, and in a way I think that's true. I think that's genuinely true. Like the top players are cooking there, where it's like a lot of people just don't have drive to really push the game that much, and that's okay. I'm not dissing them. I'm not saying they have to hop up and do that. It's just about finding the right people to do that thing. But that's kind of the issue, because the community tries to solve the community's issue, but like in reality we have people with different motives here, and specifically 2 types of people with different motives. I would say one is the ranked mindset, and the other one's a true competitive mindset. And I feel like a lot of people adopt the ranked mindset, where it's like, I just want to play the game, I enjoy the game, I like getting good at the game, but not like to that extent. I don't want to commit my entire life to it. I want to commit a few hours in the week to it. It's kind of like my brain rot, but like I don't want to think too hard about the game. I don't want to think too hard about my improvement. Like I don't want to, I'm not trying to go pro, right? Like I'm not trying to be the best of the best, like on some Pokemon stuff, right? And I think that's the crux of the issue a lot of the time, that it's like, when the community asks, oh, why are there no teams? Why are they all just pickup groups, especially as higher up as you go? And it's like, yeah, because there's no reason to, right? Because I mean, that's ultimately the goal, is like, I don't want to be held down. I don't want to be committed to a team. What do you mean? Like, I don't want to do that. I want to pug it out. I want to play the game, and I want to have fun for me. And if I'm better than other people, I'm going to feel good about it. If I start losing, I'm going to feel bad about it. But, that's just how it is, like it's not, I feel like people don't take it as seriously. And people definitely want the dopamine, the same way that, like, in traditional ranked systems, I feel like, they have to appease the brain rotted, being like, oh, I spent X amount of hours, I'm hard stuck. And then, nowadays, every ranked system, I swear, has things built in to make people who just spam games feel good about themselves. Like, you're automatically guaranteed to win more than you lose, and there's like, like, oh, you have a shield, you have a ranked shield, and it's like, man, if you lose, you lose. But I know not everyone has that mentality or wants to do that, and that's why I say it's a ranked mentality. Um, I think it's a very ranked mentality, and that's why you see people who hit like +3 and then they plateau and they don't care anymore. And if they stick around, it's just to play. They're just playing to play. They just find pickups to find pickups. They don't care. They just want to play with someone who's comfy. And I think it's unfair to them even that they're kind of viewed as these like community bastions, or they have to be kind of like upstanding members, when in reality, like, if you were to translate this to Overwatch, this is just a Masters player, you know, like, and this Masters player doesn't give a crap. Like, they reach to Masters, they feel good about themselves. They're like, yeah, I'm top 1%, but they're not pushing top 500. You know what I mean? Like, they're not pushing top 500. They don't really care to go to the next step of team play and everything like that. They're just playing the game how what's given them success up until that point. You know, like, they're not trying to fundamentally change their mindset every week to reach newer heights, because they kind of already hit their goal, and they're just kind of playing the game to play. They play rank to play, and until they get burnt out on it, that's what they keep on doing. And I'm not saying they got to change that. I'm just saying I think it's a little unfair for them, because, you know, they can't do that. I mean, you could do that with X rank, but again, we already established no one wants to do that. Like, at least in the West, at least. I think there's a little bit more incentive in Japan, obviously, for X rank, because it's actually tied to things. But here in the West, obviously, maybe because there's just less queues, not as many people, whatever the reason is. But, like, it's not regarded as highly. Like, people don't care as much. It's like, oh, wow, you know, you got a really high X power. That's cool. But, like, people don't care, you know, because a lot of people don't put the effort into it, and there's no reason to grind into it, right? Instead, they'd rather just watch how you play. So I think there's just like this big ranked mentality for a lot of people, where they just want to play the game, and they don't care about like hardcore improving, or they just want to be comfortable in it. And I feel like you get that a lot less in the competitive communities of like other games, because if you're in the competitive community, you're there to be competitive. You want to make teams. You want to build team dynamics. You want to have goals. You want to push yourself. And again, that's not to say that like every person who's in there is not doing it for either fame, glory, fun, money, or, you know, like, or half-ass it, just do it because why not, or whatever, or their ego. But I feel like you see that a lot less, you know. You see that a lot less especially if you're actually going through it on your own, as opposed to like, maybe you see it in like college, for example, because I did some stuff with university esports, collegiate esports, I should say, and it's like, you know, there are some people who are like, I'm a high enough rank, let me flex on these people, and then get on the team and then brag about it, and they got their status, and then they plateau, they don't even show up to practices, they don't practice sometimes, and they just show up to the games. And in a way, that's like kind of the same mentality, where, you know, they're just showing up to play games. And this doesn't impact me as much, because I'm not a player. I'm not trying to grind through that. Like, I really am only in the Splatoon community because I like the game, and the Splatoon community was pretty fun when I was a kid, and I give back to it because I like production, and that's just like my hobby, right? And if I'm going to attach myself to some esports community or competitive gaming community or whatever, it's going to be a game I find fun and I like, and that I've grown up with, right? So for me, I'm not personally invested, but it then becomes a thing for the tournament organizers and production and whatnot, where it's like, oh, you know, like, well, what the heck? Like, I want the traditional competitive experience. I want the fame. I want the glory. I want the spectator experience. I want this. I want that. And it becomes an issue because the actual pool of people within the wider competitive community, it looks big, but like, let's be honest, like probably like 90% of people, if not more, of like the main competitive community in Splatoon are just ranked grinders, you know, essentially like the people who would play ranked otherwise. If Splatoon 4 had a good ranked system, how many people do you think would just stop doing weeklies as often? Like, let's be honest. How many people would sign up to Ludi? You know what I mean? Like, if Splatoon 4 had a good ranked system that people liked, that was generally considered popular and whatnot, how many people do you think would actually like participate within the competitive community. But that's besides the point. Like the tournament organizers, you know, they have some have different goals, but like I feel like a lot of the time they try to appease everyone without realizing that, and some of them are realizing more because we have this conversation over and over again, and you kind of pick up on new perspectives and opinions and whatnot. But like at the end of the day, you got to balance two different things. People talk about low level or pickups and all this stuff, and you know, traditionally we'd be like, what the heck happened to teams? I thought we used to love teams. And that was back when intramural was fun, but now people just want to play the game. They don't care about the intramural thing. You know, they don't care about like building teams. Because for what reason? Like, you know, like what are we doing this for? And, you know, if Ludi was running more consistently, you know, you have more of a reason to kind of build that team. But like now, it doesn't matter. You know, you could just pick up group your way to like winning $500. You know, you just find good people around your skill that you mesh well with, and you could put, not right now because PXG is there, but honestly, like I think PXG is a good reason for people to actually like lock the fuck in if you don't want them running your pockets. You got to actually think about the game for a little bit and not just like burn yourself out on it, just playing without purpose, right? You gotta lock in. You gotta lock in. So, but yeah, if Splatoon 4 had a good matchmaking system, how many people would be around? So like tournament organizers are kind of like an impasse because people keep asking for actual teams. How do we incentivize teams? How do we do this? How do we do that? And there are some tournament organizers that really only care about satisfying that group of people that are just the ranked mindset people, where it's just like, yeah, I just want to essentially play this like ranked. You know, I just want to play the game, you know, and this is an opportunity for me to, and I don't want to get curb stomped by the people who are way better than me, so I kind of want a skill thing. And a lot of people do that. A lot of tournament organizers are doing really good things, honestly, to satisfy like this portion of the community. I'm not saying that this portion of the community should not be satisfied, but for the tournament organizers and the production people that, you know, do want to satisfy that other side, that the fame, the glory, the spectator experience, the high level, I want to see this game actually be pushed. We want to build up the scene to be more competitive globally and everything. You do need to encourage and specifically target people who are willing to go through that, right? Like, obviously on the production end, you know, you need to give them that fame, that glory, that stakes, the money, you know, pour more money towards specific, you know, nice, good events. And like, you know, you need to focus in on that instead of like creating these big open level events like it's a Smash tournament. Like, do invitationals, run smaller leagues, stuff like that, because that's what the people want. If you want teams that you want to root for, right? At the end of the day, the only way you can do that by creating incentive is to, in the rule set, require them to go through multiple events together. It doesn't matter if they have branding or whatever, but it's more like you have to stick together. And that's what I think the NA League does pretty well. But I'll get into the NA League later. Like, you need to convince people to stick together or else they can't play, right? And I'm not saying that like it should be super strict. You sign up 4 people only. If they miss one event, you're screwed. No, like there are ways to kind of work around it, incorporating subs, creating periods for people to make roster changes if anything, while keeping qualification, you know, stuff like that, blah blah blah, blasey blasey. I think the North American League did a decent job at this. It could have been, you know, simpler, but that's the thing. Like, when you know you have a product that is good and you have a product that is going to entice people and you're able to get the right people on board for said project, like the restrictions aren't going to matter as much. And if anything, you're only weeding out the ranked people that want to get the ego from going to it, thinking that they'll win the thing, but aren't about that life. You know what I mean? Like, they're just naturally good, and they're gonna like steal away third place or whatever, you know. And there are some teams, I'm not gonna name names, but there are some teams that I feel like that is the case, especially in the North American League, that was kind of like that. And I'm not saying they're not good, they're obviously good, but like, you know, you can tell just from like the way they talk about it, it's just like they're just taking the game casual. And again, not against that, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously they are quite literally putting in the time, the ridiculous amount of hours to get to that point, you know, to make it to the playoffs. But you know, there are just some teams where it's just like, you know, it's mostly pickups. It's not really teams. It's not teams, but it's pickups. They're just like that. And it's like, you don't have to appeal to the pickup, you know, like, especially when they're like, I want double elimination, I want it to be as fast as possible, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, why are we limiting ourselves to only listen to as fast as possible? You know, I guess that's the thing for me. Like, I love tournament formats that mix things up. It doesn't have to be in the dictionary. You could do some crazy stuff, like do a single elimination to double elimination bracket. And I know a lot of the time the reason we can't do that stuff is because we're limited to just using something like Sendo.ink. But honestly, pen and paper the bracket. Let's be honest here. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but sometimes if it's an invitational or something, it doesn't need to be on Sendo. You can pen and paper and actually like review the matches, especially if they're all streamed. So yeah, and then obviously more of a community effort to like showcase, highlight, and kind of give that fame and glory to certain players. Obviously don't worship people, but you know, just to acknowledge their accomplishments, because everyone likes being acknowledged for them being good. And these people are quite literally the best, and they have the drive. You know, why not, you know, give them that platform and put more effort into the production, do the good production for these events. And then honestly, I would say production wise, we should probably take a little bit away from the low level events. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there isn't a place for low level competition. I'm not saying low ink has to get rid of its stream or whatever, but I do feel like, you know, sometimes a lot of effort, especially manpower wise, because there's not a lot of production people. Let's be honest, like, we're playing Splatoon on the Nintendo Switch. Not a lot of us have beefy PCs or willing to spend $100 to $200 to get a capture card to run on a crappy laptop, right? So when that happens, you know, you don't have a lot of production people, especially people who know the know-how of programming or messing with OBS and streaming and everything and troubleshooting. So, you know, when you have these limited manpower on things, it does like hurt to, you know, put a lot of effort into. Again, not to say that it doesn't. And if it has a good vision, like, I would say, like, I love LCS. I streamed for one of the events. It's probably one of my favorite things to watch. It's not particularly the highest level of play, but like the gimmick makes it interesting, you know. And honestly, like, high quality coverage of like low level events are fun, because people are like kind of right. Like, the lower levels are more fun to watch because it's more chaotic. Like, I would rather watch like a Div 6 or Div 6 and below game than I would a Div 3 to Div 1 game. But I would absolutely watch a high Div X game. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. I'm splitting it up into Div X, but I guess like the lower down, crazy stuff happens, and that's fun to watch sometimes. And then, you know, as you get higher up, people start playing more boring, but they're not really thinking. It's just flowchart Splatoon. And then once you get to the tippity top, you're like, whoa, we're cooking, and that's fun to watch. So it's like this bell curve of like interest, but I guess upside down is like a U. But the thing is, like, I think low level events is gimmicky in a way. Like, I get bored after a while, after like the 10th wipeout 1v4, you know what I mean? Or y'all forgot the objective. Like, it's funny, but you know, it's got to be a little more sparing, I think. Or just leave it to lowing. Lowing happens like once a month. That's not to say to cancel all your streams or whatever. You're running your own stream, do that, you know, I guess. But it's like Ellie says a lot, where it's like, let's throw all of our good stuff production wise, and our brains and our manpower and everything into high quality events that mean something, that is going to have the best of the best. And that makes sense, you know, not tournaments that were half baked. Not to shit on anybody that's doing tournaments. A lot of people who's done a lot of like tournaments cater towards high and top level and have put money behind it. Much respect to you. I've worked with a lot of you. You know who you are. Respect. But I understand what Ellie's saying. We're just like, okay, let's make more concerted efforts to do something instead of just another DE tournament, right? Like, let's try something new. And let's be honest here, these competitive players, they want it. They want it too. Like, we've already established that they're here because they're here for the love of the game and for the fame and the glory and everything else. So, like, why don't we choose formats that cater more to a spectator experience? Like, I'm not saying you can't toe the line, but let's be honest, like, we don't need to cater to +3s, Div 1, Div 2s, right? and when they're like, I want a DE tournament, I want to get out as fast as possible, like, when in reality we're only talking about like the best 8 teams. Like, let's make a format that highlights the best 8 teams. And I think Popgun put it pretty well, talking about 20XX in the aftermath, where it's like, yeah, let's focus, especially on day one, like, let's just focus on high quality matches, and how can we concoct fun formats that keep the stakes through the entire time. Like, no matter what, groups is going to be a little uninteresting, because you're going to see the seed 1 beat down on the seed 30, and it's not going to be even close. So, how can we make things more engaging for the top 8 of players while still incorporating people being able to rise up? And I think there are plenty of formats that do. Reborn likes talking about the Halo Championship Series format. I've seen that in person because I've been to a DreamHack that did a Halo Championship Series game. Fire format, look into it. The idea is that you have 4 groups of 3, and they do round robin. But on day 1, there's a double elim bracket where the top 4 move on in day 2 and inserted into each one of these groups, and the round robin continues, but with the 4. So the last team catches up and plays everyone. So they play 4 back-to-back gauntlet style, and then they go to a final bracket on day 3, and they fight it out, which is pretty cool. And there's a lot of other cool formats if you just look at other games. Guarantee you. Like, I know the CCA tried a cool format that was very popular in like League of Legends and other games. Really cool stuff. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, let's try stuff that is a little outside of the norm. Let's try to stream more matches, and let's try to like bring more quality to the competition and the spectator experience and everything else. If that's what the goal is for some of these TOs and these production people, and for the people who actually want to do it, instead of just trying to play both sides, where we want to do this and we want to do that. Because, I mean, especially recently, and I know this is nothing new coming from me saying it, but we're obviously seeing that, low level people and the ranked mindset people don't even care like that. They're not even showing up to these events anymore because they feel like they have to, because they're gluttonous and they're eating sorry, but like, they're already eating so many tournaments, and they prefer to farm a badge for a tournament, and they've shown that on a weekly, and that's okay. That's okay. And again, no hate to them. They have things like we've found 8s, which is just 8-mans. That's what they call it in like other games. So we've have 8s. We have those kinds of servers. People go into their own private things to play with people that they know. We have Sendo Q. We have all these other stuff. And I'm sure Sendo Q could be more catered towards more of a casual experience, that kind of ranked mindset, and more focused on quicker matches and whatnot. But ultimately, like, I think the community is doing a good job. And on both ends, I think we just need to realize that there's 2 ends, and we need to cater to each side. And for the esports people who want to be esports minded, do that. I think that's what the goal should be. Don't care what the ranked mindset people care about, right? And if they care enough to be a part of it, have them bridge the gap, or get past the friction of being in a high quality event, because that's what it shows. And I think the NA League taught me that the most, that people, if there's enough of an incentive, people will cross that bridge. And that's not me defending the format. I have my own things about the format, but the NA League to me showed me that people are willing to grit their teeth and go through fucking, like, not horrible format, but it's just like a grueling format, and put up with interviews and all this other stuff, because it's cool. Right? It's cool, and I'm here, and I worked hard for this, so why wouldn't I do it? And like, if the incentive is there, as long as you make a good tournament, you get the right people to show up, you do the good marketing, and you have the trust of people are going to come and watch. And not only that, people are also going to show up to play because they want to play, they want to do that. There was a good interview with Thunder, shout out to Roa, about like, Thunder plays the big tournaments because that's what matters. He doesn't really play tournaments outside of that, but he shows up to the big ones because that's what he cares about. Is he showing up with a pickup group? Well, yeah, because he doesn't have much incentive to not play with a pickup group. But obviously they play pretty consistently. They scrim at least a week before. Now imagine if you had a format that, I'm not saying we got to do 9-week Ludi formats for top level, but imagine if it was like a 2-week, 3-week, 3 weekends in a row. You just got to commit to that. You can have flexible subs or whatever. After week 1, you could change the roster if you need to. Blah, 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 blasey, blasey. You can have 6 people on the roster so that if you really need to sub, to just make it work. And then do that, you would have so much better of a spectator experience. You could do day 2s, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, there's some restrictions because not everyone's going to be able to do it, blah, blah, blah. But, like, imagine if you actually coordinated with a group of people to actually do that, a group of teams that actually care about that stuff. That's what matters. And again, with the NA League, people move mountains. Yes, some people are not going to be available on a Saturday to play NA League. That just sucks. That's just going to be how it is. But as long as you're not taking up 8 hours of somebody's Saturday every Saturday, and they're expected to show up to at least 5 of them, like, you're doing better than the NA League. Just have similar incentives to actually show up to like a high quality tournament of that caliber, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. So yeah, and to give my take on NA League, how I would change the format, I would just make every top 8, every weekly like regular season top 8, I would make it single elimination. I don't know why it's double elimination. I know why, because it instead of being like there's 4, like 8 through 4, 4th through 3rd through 2nd or whatever, right? Sorry, 8th through 5th, 4th through 3rd, 2nd through 1st. It has better point distribution, right? And that makes sense. Don't get me wrong. I understand why that exists, but I think single elimination would be better. Not only that, but also for the stream, because then you could do round 1. You could do, it's top 8. So really, like, you do round 1, some random round 1, and then you do 1 semis, the other semis, finals. You only do 4 matches. Boom, bada bing, right? Like, it's, you move on, you do it quick, you get a lot of matches in, and then you're not holding up a lot of people, because if you're out in quarters, if you're out in quarters, you played 3 hours, had a rest, played 1, right? And then it's whatever. Like, I don't know. To me, that just makes more sense. And for anyone being like, well, I worked all my way here and I'm out already. Like, dude, you have 8 weeks. You have 8 weeks to get a better placement. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, to me, it's like a Grand Prix, like, oh, I didn't, in racing, I guess. It's like a Grand Prix in like F1 or something, where it's like, oh, I didn't make podium this week. It's not like we have 20 other races to fight each other on, to get a better points and everything. Like, it's fine. It's fine. And I know you can't play every single one, but it's fine, truthfully. I think it's about striking a balance. I think at the end of the day, striking a balance, obviously, with that kind of top level. And if that's what we want, and that's clearly what the people want something to spectate, do that. Because I think the Splatoon community does a good job at catering for the ranked grinders, because that's what keeps the community alive. And if anything, we need to encourage more people to be like, hey, we know the ranked system sucks. What if you did this? And you incorporate that into your marketing too. Just a thought. But yeah, 2 sides of the community have two different wants. One is more traditional. The other one is just a replacement for ranked. And that's why I think you see a lot of mindset stuff. So I don't know. I've kind of gotten to the point where I think arguing over like stuff related to this fundamental issue is just cater towards one or the other. And I think we're doing a good job. I'm not saying that anything really needs to be changed. I'm not proposing for more change, radical change or anything. I think we're on a good path. Splat World Series is here. It's existing. It's really good. Good, events with good marketing and ideas like LCS exist. We have NA League, which is amazing. Ludi still exists. Weeklies still exist. And people stop talking about weeklies. Oh, there's too many weeklies or whatever. And it's like, that's okay. We're in harmony right now. I guess I just wanted to give my 2 cents because it was kind of a revelation for me after that person put out that video. I forgot the channel's name. Maybe I'll put it in the description of the video and everything. But like, it was just, yeah, it made me realize that, yeah, that's why the Splatoon community is the way that it is. And that's just how it is. And that's okay. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it makes sense. and stuff like, oh, you know, like you guys need to get better. It's like, that is true. That is true. But if you don't want to get better, then you don't have to. But from anybody else who hasn't picked up on that yet, that's what I think. That's what I think. I think you should just don't try to cater to everybody. If you want to cater to a competitive traditional esports thing, do that. Interview the right people, talk to them, advertise to them specifically. And I'm not just talking about put out a post, because there was recently I think Ammo Knights put out a really good thing. They put a lot of good production into it and everything, and people just didn't show up, and I feel so bad because it was fun. They collaborated with Triton Cup. It was a good idea, but that's the thing. That's the thing. Going back to that, I guess, again, no shade on Ammo Knights. Marcus did an amazing job, and I'm really saying this because I lament for that series, because I was looking forward to it, but they just didn't get enough signups. I think it's still happening this month, though. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it, but like, it looks fucking amazing. But I think the issue is that you needed to advertise in like +1 or something, right? Like, be like, yo, Jared, Gray, Zenith, Volti, or just like any of the long list of like anybody who's playing the game currently, and just be like, yo, I am putting together this tournament. Please sign up. Can I get you to sign up to at least one event? Right? Can I get you to sign up to at least one event and guarantee this, right? And then you announce it like weeks in beforehand, so that way everyone knows about it, and you're like, this person's signing up. I think we're doing a good job with that too. 20XX did that. Super Jumps did that. I think that was a pretty good idea, and that's why those events succeeded pretty well. But obviously, I think those events would have done fine either way, because they're run by Dapple and IPL. But I think for anybody who's starting out, just no connections, because I'm gonna be honest with you, something like Sendo and something like Max's 4v4 Sundays succeed, or even, again, if you want to even go a special tournament by Prochara and Kyo, you could be like, oh, well, these people are all just big people. But it's like, especially for Sendo, you know, Sendo was just a player. He was a really good player, if you don't know ball, but like, he was a really good player, and because people respected him and he knew the people that are good at the game, he just told them, go sign up for my tournament. I'm making a tournament. Let's run it. And they'd be like, they're like, yeah, let's do it. There doesn't even need to be a prize. You know, that's why In the Zone is so popular. It's not because, you know, whatever. Now it is, because it's kind of like an established thing, but like, you know, that's what it is. Max randomly puts out a 4v4 Sundays on a Saturday, often, you know, and people show up for it because Max has the connections within plenty of teams. He knows the high level teams, right? So all he does is DM them like, yo, sign up for my tournament, or like, those people already follow him. They're going to see that and do whatever. I don't even think some top players even follow like Dapple Productions or IPL on Twitter or whatever. They probably just hear about it from somebody else being like, I'm looking +3 for this. And I'm like, oh, that's happening. I've heard that happen. So like, if anything, you need to gossip to these people. Be like, yo, like, we're thinking of releasing this, blah blah blah, like, start thinking about it. Or yeah, that's another thing. Like, I know we complain about tournaments not releasing ahead of time or not giving much notice, but to be honest, start leaking just start leaking everywhere. Like, just like, if you're thinking of having a 20XX or something like that, just start leaking. Just being like, yo, Jared, I hear there might be a tournament in April on a Saturday, Sunday. Might happen. You might want to look for a team for it, by the way. You know, something like that. Just do that. Start leaking it. You know, start leaking it. Be like, yo, can you whistleblow and say this in the Plus server? It's okay. It's okay if people run their mouth or whatever. It's okay if you move the date. Like, it's really fine. Honestly, like, that's probably the best kind of marketing, but that's a general thing. Marketing is its whole own video I could go 40 minutes on in general, but also in Splatoon specifically. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think that's why the community is like that. It's very unique, but I also think, you know, just cater towards the one thing, and just remember this. There's a community of ranked people who just want to have fun. They just want to play the game, intramurals. And then there's the other side that, you know, wants fame, glory, to be good at Splatoon, to watch the beautiful game of Splatoon. And there will be people who appreciate it. And as a matter of fact, I think people will appreciate it more when you put more effort into catering to those people specifically, getting those specific people on board, and recognizing that drive and facilitating it, you know, like really growing it. It's a fire. Put fuel into it. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the subject. It was just a perspective thing. I don't know. I didn't really like break any new ground, but if it gave you perspective, I hope that's good. I don't really have anything actionable. I'm sorry. Just do more of what I just said, and I think we're already on that trajectory. So I'm not saying anything new, but I just want to share my thoughts and opinions. So I'm gonna try to keep rambling, so it's exactly 45 minutes. But I'm running out of things to say, so I'm sorry. No, it's fine though. But yeah, thanks. And let me know in the comments if you want me to drop the entire. I saved the Declaration of Independence, so let me know if you want me to upload that. I saved the entire stream.